Paramount's favorite writer, Taylor Sheridan, is back with another thrilling drama, Special Ops, Lioness. The espionage series revolves around a CIA operative named Joe, who is part of a special operation called Lioness. It is a classified program that recruits women as soldiers to infiltrate a target's closed network. The operatives are tasked with locating and befriending the wives, girlfriends, or sisters of high-value targets and killing them to finish the mission. The CIA had been running the Lioness program in Syria to eliminate ISIS leaders, who had become a fatal threat to American soldiers in the Middle East. Special Ops, Lioness Episode 1 mainly focuses on a new recruit named Cruz Manuelos, who joins the Marines after being assaulted by her boyfriend. The narrative focuses on Manuelos' backstory until she finally comes across Joe, who appoints her for the Lioness project. So, without any further ado, let's explore what happened in the first episode and how it will lead to the events of the second one. The Americans had been fighting the Middle Eastern War on different fronts. Special Ops, Lioness follows the CIA's secret operations conducted to quietly eliminate the target without much collateral damage. However, as we enter the first episode, we find out that one of Joe's operatives in Kobane, Syria, has accidentally blown her cover. Joe and her team were waiting 17 kilometers away from the ISIS outpost for Isabel's signal to extract her. Inside the enemy base, Isabel hides under the floor of one of the houses and connects with Joe, who reveals to her that her target has seen the cross tattoo on her ribs. In the radical Muslim community, getting any such tattoo is forbidden, especially if it is a symbol belonging to another religion. Joe and her team prepare to extract Isabel from the enemy camp before ISIS kills her. However, near the outpost, an explosive cord is detonated, thereby creating a diversion and confusion. In the end, Joe is left with no other option but to call in a drone strike to bomb the entire camp, killing all the ISIS members along with her own operative. She didn't want Isabel to suffer at the hands of ISIS, or they would have filmed her in the most inhumane way possible and made a demonstration of making her life a living hell. The first episode of Special Ops, Lioness moves back 4 years, where we come across a woman named Cruz Manuelos. When we first met Manuelos, she used to flip burgers in a joint in Oklahoma City, trying to earn an ethical living. She had lost her mother in junior high and never knew her father. After her mother's death, she had no real family to rely on and thus, lost her way. She perhaps became a stripper for the time being but didn't really want to make money through such means. However, during her job as a dancer, she met the most toxic guy of her life. Her boyfriend had given her a roof to live under in exchange for her peace and sanity. He would try to tame her and even assault her if she refused to follow his orders. But Manuelos had enough. She fought back and hit her boyfriend with a frying pan. While running away from him, Manuelos ended up in a Marine recruiting office, where an officer not only protected her from her abuser but also showed her a new path to follow. Manuelos decided to sit through the military recruitment examination and ended up passing her aptitude test with flying colors. Even her physical assessment had been quite remarkable. Manuelos' performance in both physical and theoretical tests couldn't be ignored, which is why her superior stated that she could become one of those armed personnel who could make a difference. He hinted at the fact that she was made for the Marines, which means she wouldn't be able to have a steady life in the real world. Manuelos assured him that she had no real life so far and perhaps wouldn't have any outside the military. The scene implies that maybe Manuelos will develop some personal connections in the upcoming episode that are going to create some conflict in her military career. We saw a similar dilemma in Joe's case, who was not able to spend time with her family because of her job in the CIA. She had become distant from her kids, and they grew resentful, but there was nothing she could do to fix that. For a CIA operative, the country comes first. After Isabel's death, the head of the operation, Byron Westfield, briefs Joe to find a new recruit and commands her to make sure to check the tattoos beforehand. She ends up in Bragg, where she finds out about Manuelos, a woman from Mexico with a Syrian father and a Mexican mother. According to the briefing officer, Jack, Manuelos is well versed in Arabic, which makes her the perfect fit for the Lioness program. And her past experiences increase her chances of getting recruited as a CIA operative. Joe had been quite unsure about Manuelos until she finally met her. In Manuelos, Joe saw a fighter who was willing to go to any lengths to finish the missions, and that's all she wanted. After a heated tattoo check, Joe didn't waste a moment to brief Manuelos about the special program and what her role would be in it. They soon boarded a flight to Kuwait City to introduce Manuelos to the rest of the team. During the flight, Joe briefs Manuelos about their first target, Asmar Ali Amrohai, an important member of ISIS in Iraq. Joe informs Manuelos that her mission will be to befriend Asmar Ali's daughter, Aliyah, in order to get close to the target. According to the intel, Aaliyah is young and likes to spend her father's money. In Kuwait, Manuelos takes the identity of Zara Adid, who is a Muslim woman born in Boston, while her parents originally belonged to Abu Dhabi. She has come to Kuwait during her semester off and is currently staying with her uncle. With the information nicely fed to Manuelos, Joe quickly sends her to the battlefield to befriend Aaliyah. Manuelos finds Aaliyah in one of the jewelry shops in the Salhia market and strikes up a conversation with her by complimenting a necklace that she is eyeing. The two get along pretty quickly while Aaliyah invites her to the Estée Lauder showroom across the street. With a band of bodyguards escorting Aaliyah, Manuelos is finally able to infiltrate the first security parameter, and from here on, she will have to get close to Asmar Ali to kill him. However, as we have already witnessed in Isabel's case, it won't be an easy mission, and Manuelos's safety is highly questionable. If any such dangerous circumstance were to arise, would Joe be able to save her new operative? Hopefully, the upcoming episode will give us the answer. We witnessed the potential that Cruz had in the very first episode of Special Ops, Lioness, and we had no doubt that she was going to be an exceptional agent. It wouldn't be wrong if we said that Cruz was gifted, and she was better than most, but still, Joe wanted to test her limits and know how much she was able to take in before reaching her breaking point. Joe knew that it was not something that was done quite often, but still, this time she wanted to be sure what kind of person she was dealing with. Joe wanted the odds to be in her favor, but she also knew that the risk was huge. So, let's find out what happened in the second episode of Special Ops, Lioness between Joe and Cruz. Joe knew that a lot of times, she took her family for granted and wasn't able to be with them as much as she should. As a result, her daughter Kate had become a different person altogether, and she had grown to despise Joe. Joe knew about it, and as much as she wanted to change the equation she had with her daughter, she didn't have the bandwidth to do that. Cruz Manuelos had been introduced to Aaliyah, and Joe knew that now they had to amp up their game and get a step ahead of the ISIS leaders. Joe met Caitlin Meade and told her that she wanted to put Cruz on the grinder. Caitlin didn't understand what Joe was up to, and he told her that Cruz had already been through the Survival Evasion Resistance Escape (SERE) training program. But Joe was of the opinion that the kind of mission Cruz was going to undertake required her to be strong from within. Joe knew that the ISIS leaders would subject her to the kind of brutality that she had never imagined in her life. More than her body, her spirit needed to be strong, and Joe wanted to prepare her for that. Joe knew that Cruz would hate her for life if she was made to face such torture in her training, but she still wanted to go head-on with it. Caitlin told her that Cruz was her operative, and she was free to do whatever she deemed to be the best course of action. Joe went back to her house to find that her daughter Kate had said some very mean things to Neil, who was having a tough time. Earlier that day at work, Neil had to tell a small girl's parents that her tumor had metastasized and that the chances of her making it through were negligible. Neil had to tell her parents that if he were in their place, he wouldn't go ahead with the treatment because it was extremely painful. The father had lost his temper and assaulted Neil. Neil felt guilty. He couldn't imagine how life could be so unfair. He couldn't do anything about it, but being in that helpless situation agitated him. Neil got a call from Kate's school that she had been in a fight, and he had to go and pick her up. Kate went to the extent of saying that Neil wouldn't understand anything considering he was a white man. Neil felt really hurt, and he took Kate's phone and asked her to go sit quietly in her bedroom and contemplate what she had done. Joe came back to her house and found Neil in a miserable condition. Dealing with teenagers is hard, but Joe knew that Neil needed her support. She went and talked to Kate and gave her a reality check. She told her how privileged she was and how she had hurt her father. Joe knew that making her daughter understand anything was going to be an uphill task, but she couldn't shy away from her responsibilities. Both Joe and Neil had extremely hectic lives, and probably that was one of the reasons that made parenting even more difficult for them. They had professional obligations, and amidst all that, they were not able to spend some quality time together. Cruz Manuelos had this belief that she was unbreakable, and Joe in Special Ops, Lioness Episode 2 wanted to break her illusion. Joe was very well aware of the fact that Cruz would start considering her an enemy if she went ahead with her plan, but Joe was fine with it. She knew that making her an enemy was much better than losing her on the battlefield and then regretting not knowing her limits. Joe wanted to conduct a very risky experiment where she wanted to see for herself the extent to which Cruz was capable of going. Cruz was a restless soul, and after she woke up early in the morning, she just wanted a way to spend all her energy. She decided to go for a run when she was kidnapped and taken to an unknown location on a ship. Cruz was put through torture, and she had no clue what was happening to her for the longest time. After being tortured for a while, she was given clothes to wear, and Joe came to talk to her. That's when Cruz got to know that it was all a training program. Obviously, Cruz was infuriated, and at that moment, if her hands were not tied and she had the energy, she would have killed each and every operative present there. Joe told her up front that she was not done with her yet, as she still wanted to shatter her pride and make her ready for what she was about to face in the future. After really testing her limits, Joe dropped Cruz off at Fort Bragg, where she was supposed to stay with her team. Seeing Cruz in that state, even Bob and others were surprised. When Bobby got to know that it was not the usual staff training program, she got agitated. She took everybody to the bar so that they could teach those guys a lesson. Bobby, Cruz, Toes Cups, and others entered into a brawl with the people who had tortured Cruz, and they were a bit taken aback when they got to know that it was Joe who had ordered it. Meanwhile, Cruz got a call from Aaliyah, who told her that she was in Atlanta and was flying to Chesapeake, Virginia, the next day. Aaliyah called Cruz to come along, and she obviously agreed. It would be interesting to see what happens when Cruz finally meets Asmar Ali Amrohai and if she is able to get into their inner circle and win his trust, as she did with Aaliyah. Thank you for joining us on this journey. And I hope you enjoyed the episodes of Special Ops Lioness. We will meet in the next video.